Texans a 6.5-point favorite against the Jags. So a heavy favorite despite some heavy problems, as some would put it, on the offensive line. Landry, Locker, Cody, Stoots with you. It is the SNL collaboration. We'll be at practice today. So we're going to look at whether or not we see Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, all that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to play a game, Cody, the Bobby Blame game. The Bobby Blame game. Bobby Slowik. I saw Seth Payne yesterday said that Bobby Slowik deserves some of the blame for the offensive line. I know Bobby Slowik is a topic for some when we talk about the problems with the Texans. Are you going to participate in the Bobby Blame game?
Yes, I am. But I'm not going to participate like some people participate, because some people take Bobby Slowik and use him as a shield for the poor offensive line play. And that's not the way you should blame Bobby Slowik. If you want to put some things on Bobby Slowik, I'll listen. There are a couple of plays that had some curious blocking elements to them. Like, I can remember one play Sunday where Kenyon Green just vacates his area and comes back across the back part of the line. And then ultimately where he vacated, nobody picked it up, and CJ got pressured, or I think he maybe got sacked on that play. Like, there's some curious stuff that they do with the offensive line, but Bobby Slowik doesn't make them false start. Bobby Slowik doesn't make them line up illegally. And Bobby Slowik doesn't let Andrew Van Ginkel work over a $25 million left tackle. He doesn't let a couple of interior defensive linemen that we've never heard of beat up his interior offensive line, and Bobby Slowik can't block for these guys. So the Slowik blame deserves some of the blame. Yes. Does he deserve blame in place of the offensive line? That's ludicrous. They share the blame. When the offense isn't working, you look at the key factors to it, and then you start going down the list. The key factor, the offensive line. Next, you want to go Bobby Slowik? I'll listen to you on that.
Yeah, I just, it's like whenever a team gets a lot of penalties and you immediately say it's the coaching, it's a lack of discipline. I think sometimes that's kind of simplistic. I don't think that Bobby Slowik and D'Amico Ryans are coaching Laramie Tunsil to go out there and line up wrong. I would argue they're probably coaching the opposite. So, maybe there's like some nuance and there's some intricacies that Bobby Slowik is not performing at the highest level. I'm just not going to sit here and pretend to understand exactly what he's supposed to be doing and what that nuance is. As far as actual play calling, I think some of his best efforts were actually kind of wiped away the other day. So do I sit here and I think Bobby Slowik's like some sort of victim of what's going on? And not really. But I do think that it's a personnel thing as much as it is a Bobby Slowik thing. And I think that even the best front offices have weak spots. The New England Patriots couldn't evaluate receivers. Even in their heyday, they couldn't. They made a lot of mistakes at receiver. Now they made some good decisions as well. But as far as like evaluating and investing and draft equity and stuff, there was a rough stretch there for New England. So maybe that's just kind of the weak spot of the front office. Unfortunately, that's a weak spot that's very hard to overcome, which might be something that Bobby has to do. But I don't dismiss Bobby Slowik. He's just way down my list of things and list of problems with the Texans right now.
Like, Bobby Slowik sets it up so that the tight ends block the defensive ends. Like, if that's what was supposed to happen in that play, that's a bad job by Bobby Slowik. You know who else did a bad job? Cade Stover getting run over. Dalton Schultz not being able to block the guy. Like, you put those players in the position hoping that they're going to succeed. When they don't succeed multiple times, yeah, maybe it's on you the second, third time after that. But when you just give Cade Stover the opportunity, hey, this is the play call. You know that you got to block this guy. You can't get run over. So, is that Bobby's fault that Cade Stover gets run over? The very first time, it's probably not. The second, the third time, when Dalton Schultz does it, yeah, that's probably Bobby Slowik's fault as well. But the thing that works for and against Bobby Slowik in kind of assessing what he does is the short resume that he has. He has last year as an offensive coordinator. And so you can see some of the ugly and the warts from last year, but you can also see how he cleaned it up. And then you don't have like this long, like if Andy Reid and the Chiefs have a couple of bad games in a row in offense, it's Andy Reid. He's going to fix it. Like the tough part about when Slowik gets critical is you don't have this long resume to look back and be like, yes, he's going to fix it, and yes, he's going to fix it in short order. Now, he did it a couple of times last year where he fixed it. I think the best example is Carolina. They're awful on offense. The next week, they're incredible on offense against Tampa Bay. That's a pretty decent Tampa Bay defense last year. Like he's got it on his resume that he can fix his parts, but nothing he does, nothing he calls. You could have Andy Reid calling this team. If the offensive line can't block, they're not going to beat anybody.
Here's the problem, though, and I think this is just natural for people. I'm not even saying that I'm not guilty of it. I also feel like he's kind of an easy target, and I think that of all, like if you power rank the beloved things in Houston when it comes to the football team, I think C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans are at the tippity top, so they're not going to get much blame. And I don't think C.J. Stroud deserves any. I think C.J. Stroud is a victim of poor offensive line play. I don't know if Bobby is a reason. Or how much of a reason, but I think CJ Stroud is a victim of poor offensive line play. So I understand that. But I mean, Kevin O'Connell kicked D'Amico's ass last Sunday. And I mean, I can't look at the offensive line and say, and maybe there are minds that are capable of doing this. I'm just not going to lie to y'all and pretend. I can't look at the offensive line and say Bobby Slowik should have done this. I can't look at it. There might be something that I should see, but I can't look at it and say that. I can look at Minnesota kicking D'Amico's ass with Kevin O'Connell and Matt Burke, I think, and saying, well, just like the announcers were, why is Justin Jefferson not getting any resistance at the line of scrimmage? Why is that happening? Why is it that whenever they have their break between the second half that Kevin O'Connell comes out there and just has the perfect game plan to dissect the Texans defense along with the help and the sloppiness? So the other thing about Bobby Slowik is, and this is going to be the case no matter what, I mean, he can call 5 gyms in a row. If they lose a game, you're naturally, and rightfully so, because I think these two guys are going to be here for a long time and they've got a lot of sweat equity and they represent a lot of hope and the reason that people are so excited about this organization. But even if it is CJ or D'Amico or anything like that, I think Bobby Slowik's going to get a lot of the blame. And again, don't know whether or not that should be the case. I think that would be the case even if it shouldn't.
Well, the perception and look, when you're the offensive coordinator of a team that has Nico Collins and Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell and a highly paid offensive line and CJ Stroud, and you score 7 points, you're going to catch criticism. You should. And I'll be very interested to hear what Bobby Slowik has to say. And what he says at the podium is not going to necessarily affect how he can call a game. But I do want to see, he has not been afraid to take blame when he feels like he has been the issue in the past. So I am interested to see what he says Thursday when he goes to the podium. But there's nothing that was good outside of a couple of CJ Stroud throws, like and maybe a moment or two here from the defense. Ultimately, they gave up what they gave up. Like nothing was good from this team. So like it'd be very foolish to narrow down and say this guy's the reason or that guy's the, like Bobby Slowik and the O-line need to share the blame for what happened to this offense. It wasn't good enough. I mean, even when I asked D'Amico Ryans about the rushing attack, wasn't good enough. We got to be better. It's like, well, it wasn't good enough because A, you got down, B, you couldn't throw the ball. And when you did run the ball, it wasn't good. Like, I mean, you had guys getting blown up and rushes that go nowhere. The only time anything happened was Cam Akers hit the B button 2 times and spun out of 2 tackles. Like,
He did. By the way, pour one out for Titus Howard's Twitter account. Looks like it's dead at the moment. Pour it out for him. Past due, man. That thing lived way longer than it probably should have. So good for him.
I think it's on hiatus.
Well, that's fine. And
I think it's coming back.
He strikes me as a potential burner guy. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, it's for now the actual account is resting and good for him. You're going to be better off for it, I can assure you.
I will. Can I? Okay, hold on. Conspiracy theory.
Oh God.
Conspiracy theory. Cody's back. Is there a chance something happened more than just catching a little flack on Twitter that made
100%.
I
don't see how D'Amico Ryans can hear what Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil said and not like kind of come down on them pretty hard, because you're telling on yourself. Like you're literally saying, well, I'm committing penalties more than they're actually calling. So if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm not too pleased with that.
Like, I do wonder, conspiracy theory, did another injury pop up? And he's like, I can't take people telling me that I'm, injury prone on Twitter, so I'm out of here. Or did he get benched?
No.
I mean, but like putting together, like if I felt like I didn't play bad and people are telling me I played bad.
To watch the tape.
Yeah, he said, show me where I got beat. I bet you that they showed him, but like putting together if I felt like I played bad or I played not as bad as people say, I'm getting a lot of criticism on Twitter, and then I walk in and they tell me that the other guy's going to be in my place, I'd probably delete Twitter. I'm just saying. It's a conspiracy theory.
I would say if I sucked and I was getting piled on that bad and I said something dumb that would harm the team and my ability to do my job, it's been a long time coming. That would be my theory on that.
Okay. All right. So we'll find out 12:30 today. If we don't see Titus Howard, if we don't see Titus Howard, then there's injury speculation. And then ultimately they'll line up with what is supposed to be the first team offensive line at some point in that practice. So we'll see. Just a conspiracy theory. Got the cap on for a reason.
Shower cap. Texans open as a 6.5-point favorite versus the Jags. My question is this, because I put this question up. Are the Texans closer to the Bills or the Jags? Got a lot of Bills. I'm not saying that can't be the case very, very soon. But I think it'd be foolish to, based on what we've seen and based on where the Texans are and based on where the Bills have been and where they currently are, to say that the Texans are closer to the Bills than the Jags, because the Jags in the last 2 years, they've won the AFC South. The Texans have won the AFC South. It was a one-game difference last year. And quite frankly, the Texans this year, as fun as it is to laugh at an 0-3 team, the Texans could easily be 0-3 this year. Sure. They could very, very easily be 0-3. So the Texans are a lot closer to 0-3 than they are 3-0. Now, you beat the Jags and you go to 3-1, and then you got the Bills, then the fluid process can start shaping up. My question is this: instead of debating stuff that's going to play out in the next couple of weeks, how much better are the Texans than the Jags? That's the question. Because when I see a 6.5-point favorite, and you see Jacksonville kind of starting to get banged up, how much better are the Texans than the Jags? That would be my question.
I would tell you that they are significantly better. And when I say that, I mean the floor is a lot higher for Houston than I think. Like Jacksonville's floor is get dominated by average to bad teams. The Texans' floor right now, as we've seen it, is, squeak by bad teams. Like, I mean, they got dominated by what we think is a pretty good team over there in the NFC in Minnesota. So I would tell you they're much better. The quarterback is more consistent. The talent at wide receiver is better. The offensive line is more talented. It's both offensive lines have played poorly, but the offensive line is more talented in Houston. And then defensively, there's actually a pass rush. There's not really a consistent pass rush over there. Jacksonville just lost their leading tackler for a few weeks. So he's going to be out.
Tacklers in the league last year.
Yep. So he's going to be out for a few weeks. And so he's not playing Sunday. It is dire there in Jacksonville.
It feels like, I kind of look at that team and I say, okay, they're not like a contender, but they're not 0-3 at like type of squad, but there is kind of a feel of, man, it's just been going too long, man. Like sometimes you just got to move on. Sometimes there's a shelf life. It does feel that way. And when I saw the line, I was kind of surprised, honestly. I mean, this is the one thing Jacksonville this is going to be a desperate time. They're playing for their season. Like I don't think there's no, it's early with this. Like they're playing for their season. And the Texans, if you get within a one game of Jacksonville and you go 2-2 during, is this the easiest quarter of the season? I'm still going quarters. Is this the easiest like 4-game stretch, perhaps?
Yes, I would tell you that this is likely supposed to be one of the easier 4-game stretches and is the easiest 4-game stretch.
Okay, I would agree.
The next 4 is Bills, road Patriots, road Packers, home Colts.
See, yes, I would agree. Although the Patriots aren't that great, but yes, I would agree. So if you go 2-2 in that, and you're only 1 game up on the Jags, and the Jags all of a sudden have life after be kind of against the ropes, then it's not the sky is falling. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that the Texans are out of it and screw them or anything like that. They're still in the division, but you've squandered away a huge opportunity. And I said this last night on the night stream, which you can hear at 10:30, a little more loose. There's only been twice in NFL history that a team has started out 2-0 and the rest of the division has started out 0-2. So if 4 weeks after that season, you're 1 game up on 2 of those teams, that's not ideal. That's not ideal.
Well,
and you could be actually tied with the Colts.
You've played poor enough that you've allowed them to hang around. If you lose this weekend, you will have played 2 really poor games back to back, and despite what you did the first 2 weeks, gutty wins, getting those victories, you will have played poor enough to allow teams to hang around. And we've seen, the Jaguars were that team last year. They played poor enough to let the Texans hang around. Next thing you know, the Colts and the Texans take care of their business, and Indy doesn't. Jacksonville doesn't. The Colts and Texans played for a playoff spot and ultimately the AFC crown. Then Jacksonville just fell apart. You don't want to be in 2024. You don't want to be the 2023 Jags where you had a nice lead, you felt comfortable. At one point last year, the Texans were plus 500 to make the playoffs late in the year.
Yeah. It was after the Jags game. I remember it because I already had the Texans to win the division with McLean, and I was like, double down. I didn't do it, but yeah, it was after the Jags game.
Yep. So you don't want to be 2023 Jags if you're the 2024 Texans. And to avoid being that, you got to beat the 2024 Jags.
Jesse Swarm in the super chat. He says the Blake Fisher pick that people were upset about makes a lot of sense now. I hope. Keep up the great work, Cody.
Landry does great work too.
No. That's your crew. It's all good, man. But he's the thing about that is true. And that was more of a chess move. And we were all a little bit surprised, I think, initially by that. But yeah, it looks like a really, really good pick. I think he's one of the starting tackles at the latest in the next couple of years. But I would not dismiss. First of all, Laramie and Titus, they don't play 17 games. So we'll get a look at him. But yeah, the pick looks actually brilliant right now.
Yeah, that selection was made with the anticipation that there would be some sort of injury concern with Tunsil or Howard because they have lengthy injury histories. And then long term, you have the guy to replace either Laramie Tunsil or Titus Howard, whichever one you want to move on from. And I didn't expect, even if you sort of saw the plan of, hey, these guys might get hurt, so now you have Blake Fisher, I didn't expect week 3 to be considering, at some point Fisher might need to play because you're going to need to bench somebody. That's not good.
Do you think they need to bench somebody?
It's not there for me yet, but if you told me, 6 weeks from now they're benching one of the tackles for Blake Fisher, I'm not going to be super surprised.
You would be a little bit surprised, right?
I'd be floored if they ever bench Laramie Tunsil. But if you told me down the road Titus Howard got benched, it's not the craziest thing in the world.
Well, the thing for me is that we don't know D'Amico's full tendencies. It's still relatively young for the tendencies. We've seen him bench Jalen Petrie. We've seen him in a game bench Jalen Petrie. But that would be a massive decision to bench when he's. I will say this: if they perform Sunday like they did last Sunday, then they got to do something. You can't just dismiss 2 straight performances like that. You can get over it quickly, but they can't just bench one. And Front Runner is saying, shout out to Front Runner. that Shaq Mason might be the worst of them all. I mean, this was one of mine and Stoots' biggest arguments in camp. He looks old, man. Like he looks old. And I'm not even saying that disrespectfully or anything like that. Dude, he's a 300-pounder who's been bending over and running and blocking for how long has Shaq been in the league? Like 10 years, 11 years? It's been a long time. He's got a lot, and he did it at Georgia Tech and then at New England. And then he came to Houston. Like there are a lot of miles on those legs. Like Shaq's been around for a while.
Yeah, 2015 was his first year in the league. Yeah. 2015. So
this is his 10th year.
This is his 10th year, yeah.
And that was after being at Georgia Tech. And
this
you know what kind of offense they ran.
So he did that at Georgia Tech. And then he played 14, 16, 16, 14, 15, 13, 15, 17, 17. Like, I mean, the dude doesn't miss.
Yeah,
he's got
playoffs.
He's got a lot of playoffs.
Yeah, and he was in Tampa. Yeah.
When it goes, sometimes it goes fast.
Dude, I can't even walk. I had to stop hooping at 34 because I was playing my best, and then all of a sudden I was like, man, my knee was swelling. He's freaking guarding. He's banging with 300-pounders. Pause. Fine. Keep up the good work, Landry. What are the chances of matching tinfoil hats? Possible new segment. I'm not going to steal Cody's bit, man.
I have a whole pack of these. I can send you one.
No, let me just say this. I'm just going to say this. I got to be honest with you. Watch this. These are my confessions. I create my own bits. I don't take other people's bits. That's my confession. Shout out to all the loopholes. If you listen, you are one, and we're going to continue to localize it here, okay? I use my own bits. I don't steal other people's bits. I come up with my own ideas. Let's get to the other side of the rock, the state of the Texans pass rush.
Okay, so I went through on NFL advanced stats, and I just looked up some numbers about this pass rush because I was curious. I was curious to see where this pass rush ranked and stacked up against some of the other pass rushes in football. And this is what I came up with, Landry. I knew that they were good. And obviously some of the success from Chicago bleeds into the overall statistical excellence. But I did not expect Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter to be 1 and 2 in quarterback pressure rate in the NFL. But they are. They are.
The biggest overreaction for me after this Minnesota game, and this actually kind of drove me nuts to where I just kind of stayed out of it, and I didn't even partake. I heard people saying, man, you let Jonathan Grenard get away. Man, you could have had Jonathan Grenard instead of Danielle Hunter. Let me tell you something, okay? Let me just explain this to you. I watched Danielle Hunter go against that offensive line, and he was even 3 times more dominant than Jonathan Grenard was. If you're telling me that Danielle Hunter could go against the Texans offensive line, I'm telling you it would not have been much different. Yeah. And we didn't know what to make of it. I think it was a little bit of Danielle Hunter being good, but Danielle Hunter looked exactly, and they weren't stunting. Danielle Hunter looked exactly like Jonathan Grenard did in camp.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I knew, look, and this is one of those things too, where it's like, oh, okay, Cody, like, who cares about the pressure rate? Do they get home? Like, I remember that conversation with Will Anderson last year. Well, just because Anderson and Hunter don't get home doesn't mean the team doesn't get home. They've got the 4th most sacks in football. So, like, as a team pressure rate, number 1, okay. 4th most sacks in football. And like, okay, well, when are they pressuring guys? Well, when trailing in the game, Will Anderson's the 5th best in football. Felt like that was a pretty good stat. And then the one that blew me away was 3rd down pressure rate. Foley Fatukasi and Will Anderson are tied. They're the best in football. They get a pressure on the quarterback 40% of the time when they rush on 3rd down.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that these quarterbacks have been – I mean, and this isn't good. I know that Matt Burke hates this. I know Will Anderson really effing hates it. But the quarterbacks haven't looked comfortable. Like I didn't feel like Sam Darnold was back there just dissecting him. I actually felt like he was getting out of the pocket and making plays. I felt like Caleb Williams was running for his life, and Anthony Richardson too.
The first touchdown, Sam Darnold had to extend the play because there was a pressure on him. Like he had to get off of his spot and roll out to the left, and then he found Justin Jefferson because you can't cover him. So, but when you have a game like that and the defense gives up what they give up, it's hard to kind of combine the fact that, like, the stats tell you this. I don't know that it always felt that way, but this is a potentially dominant defensive line, has the chance to be one of the best defensive lines in football, and that will find like a settle for this defense that creates so many different things for them and makes so many different things easy.
A Tim Settle?
No, like I couldn't find a better word for it. But hell, even Tim Settle, 2 sacks this week, finally got going. Now, did he maybe vacate the spot that Darnold escaped from on the first touchdown? Maybe. I'd like to talk to him about that.
You're also making a trade deadline acquisition basically with Danico Autry, which you'd probably like to have him sooner, but you're getting to add Danico Autry to this mix now.
I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they beat Minnesota if they have Danico Autry. That'd be foolish. But
no, I wouldn't say that. I don't know that they beat Minnesota if they have Reggie White.
But they will be able to do exactly what they want to do from a defensive line standpoint when they have Autry, because right now they don't play Jerry Hughes that much, and I feel like part of it is he's just an older player and the usefulness is not quite
fired.
Is not quite there.
Fired.
As to the level that it would be versus Danico Autry.
Shots fired. Wow.
That's not shots fired. That's exactly how the team operated. They paid Danico Autry $10 million to be on this team, and then he got popped for roids. So it's like,
is Trevor Lawrence the worst quarterback they faced?
No, Anthony Richardson is.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. But I'm just asking. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. It's an amusing situation to watch. I think he is what people said Sam Darnold is, at the very least. And I don't know, like Sam Darnold might still be Sam Darnold, but I think everything that everyone says about Sam Darnold, Trevor Lawrence is. He does dumb stuff, but it's not like blunt. It's not like blatantly dumb. Like he's not Will Levis and he's not flipping it backwards, but like maybe it's not even dumb. Like he just Trevor Lawrence, since I've been watching him in the NFL, and this wasn't in college, he has over the course of a game like 4 throws that are just the worst throws that you can possibly imagine. It happens at least 3 or 4 times a game.
Like I totally agree, because I felt the same way at Clemson where there's like a couple like, huh? But I felt like that kind of dipped a little bit in the early years in Jacksonville, and like there was a little bit of consistency, and the team around him just kind of sucked, and then it came back. Like it's like that's probably the scary part about a guy like Lawrence is like he's got a big hole in his game that shows up. It feels like every single week, like, hey, we really need this, and the guy can't make the throw, and it's like, oh. Again, people in the chat that they have played so far. Levis is really bad.
We're talking about Darnold, Richardson, and Caleb Williams. Because I think you have to. It's more of a question. Not like I knew the answer, but I think the fact that you even have to like entertain it, like just think, just like for example, C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson. C.J. Stroud. Yeah. If you say Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson, there's at least like a little bit of like a shoulder going back thinking type of thing. Like it's at least like, oh, well, Trevor, of course.
My question would be, what's Trevor Lawrence's excuse? Like he's just not that good. Like Anthony. Like I know what Anthony Richardson.
I know what his excuse is. I know what his excuse is.
What?
It's that he's had multiple coaches, multiple systems, and they keep shuffling his weapons. Like every year they bring in new weapons and they get rid of weapons. That would be the excuse. I'm not saying it's a valid excuse. I'm saying that would be his excuse. But it kind of seems like outside of the multiple coaches, but that even happens. It doesn't say, I mean, like people have Josh Allen lost Stefon Diggs this year. Like, am I supposed to like act like Trevor Lawrence just is supposed to fall off the face of the earth because he lost Calvin Ridley and they brought in Zay Jones instead? Like, I don't. So, yeah, it's like the excuse. I don't think the excuse lines up. I'm just telling you what the excuse is from people in Jacksonville is his surroundings aren't good and he's losing weapons. But that kind of seems like something that happens in the league.
And that's a bad offensive line, too. They told everybody around they wanted to change the offensive line. They swapped out one piece. Well,
yep.
It's bad job. And they don't have Aiden Hutchinson.
Yep.
I mean, God, so glad that guy's on the Lions.
Yep, that is a good thing. All right, so practice today. What are we looking for at practice? Obviously, I think we got to start with Joe Mixon. We're going to be, that's the first thing I want to be going out there and looking. Is he on the side? Is he in pads? What are we doing with Joe Mixon? What's going on there?
Joe Mixon's at the top of my list. And then number 2 is after a game, you always have somebody missing a Wednesday. Dalton Schultz with the ankle when he missed Wednesday, but ended up practicing later in the week.
It's going to be Tank, I think.
You think it's going to be like Tank, and his wrist is certainly something to pay attention to. I will be interested to see how Juice Scruggs held up playing on the injured groin. So is he practicing today? And then I know you think he doesn't matter as much, but is Dameon Pierce back from the hamstring injury?
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, Dameon Pierce, running back action. All right, man. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube, 9 a.m. tomorrow. And then we're going to go to 4 p.m. final injury report reaction on Friday, reaction Mondays at 8 a.m. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.
Thank y'all very much.